friends, it is Natalie, and it is time for us to discuss the books the biggest celebrities have been picking for their book clubs. That's right, it's time for a celebrity book club review where we're going to talk about Oprah, we're going to talk about Emma Roberts, and we're going to talk about Jenna Bush Hager. So let's dive in. Now, because I was not able to post videos for 2 months due to my emergency surgery and having to recover from that, we have missed quite a few books and we have a lot to discuss. And then, just to make my job just a little bit harder, both Jenna Bush Hager and Emma Roberts decided in August that they were going to pick 2 books instead of 1. So I guess it was good that I was in bed having all that time to read. So let's start with Jenna Bush Hager. She has had some really interesting picks over the last couple months. Now, her June book was A Burning, and this is a book that sets place in India, and it has 3 main characters. This was a great book. It was a fast read. I could not put it down. Our first main character is Siobhan. She's a Muslim girl. She comes from a very poor family, but she is really looking to move up in the world. Unfortunately, she leaves a careless comment on Facebook and she is accused of a terrorist attack that had taken place on a train. Our second main character is PT. He is a gym teacher, but he has aspirations to rise up in this right-wing political party. Unfortunately, to do that, he's going to have to turn his back on Siobhan. And then my favorite character is Lovely, who is a transgender woman who is trying to make it in Bollywood. Like I said, this is set in India. This has 3 amazing characters, and the way their stories come in and interact and unfold was just amazing. I cannot recommend this book more. Please, if you have a chance, check out A Burning. Her July pick was Friends and Strangers by J. Courtney Sullivan, and this was really good as well. This book has 2 main characters. It has Elizabeth and it has Sam. Elizabeth is an accomplished journalist and she's a new mom, and she had spent 20 years in New York but has moved to a small town with her husband to kind of start a new life with her baby. It's important to them that their new son is raised around family. But this is a big transition for Elizabeth, and honestly, she gets lonely. Enter Sam, who is a senior at the local women's college who ends up being hired to help babysit. But Sam is at a point in her life, she's really trying to figure out who she is. She has a romance going on with somebody who lives in England, which is a long-term romance. She doesn't know if this is something she should continue. And the 2 women become very close friends and confidants. Now, some of you might be thinking, that sounds like such a fun age. And yes, there are a few similarities from this book to Such a Fun Age, but very few. This relationship, these characters are very different. Their relationship is very different. And I quite enjoyed this. In fact, I think I enjoyed this even a little bit more than Such a Fun Age. They were kind of close. I gave this one 4 stars. And it probably goes without saying, but I apologize. This one definitely got 5 stars. So Jenna Bush Hager chose 2 books for August. The first one she chose was The Comeback. In this book, our main character is Grace, and Grace became a huge movie star, teen star, but then she kind of disappears from the limelight, and people don't really know why. And it's her story of why she disappears, and then why she decides to come back. And at first I thought, this kind of sounds YA, but no, this is a very serious novel about what happens sometimes in the film industry to young women. And it really was like, when I read it, I was thinking, this almost is reading like it's somebody's true story. It was just very authentic and truthful, and it talked about some really hard topics, and I gave it 4 stars. Her second book was a nonfiction book called Here for It by R. Eric Thomas. In this memoir, R. Eric Thomas tells us what it was like to basically grow up as a gay young man in a mostly white community. And even though he is talking about so many serious topics, this book is hilarious. I found myself laughing out loud so many times. The best way I can describe this book is I felt like I went with R. Eric Thomas out one night to get drinks, and we sat at a table or a booth, and he decided to tell me some of the funny stories about being a gay black man in a white community, but at the same time, he's such a funny guy that he's making me laugh at the same time. And I don't usually say this about nonfiction, but I could not put this book down. Highly, highly recommend it. And then for September, Jenna Bush Hager chose Transcendent Kingdom. And I have not started this book yet, but I cannot wait to jump in because it sounds fascinating. The main character in this is named Gifty, and supposedly she's a 6th-year PhD student in neuroscience at Stanford. She comes from a Ghanaian family, and she's doing experiments on mice to study addiction and also to study depression. The reason being is that her little brother, who was a star athlete in high school, had an injury, got addicted to painkillers, ended up turning to heroin and overdosed. And also she's studying depression because her mother is in such a bad depression. So from what I understand, Gifty is trying to look at all the problems in her family that is an immigrant family, and she's trying to do it through a science lens. Jenna Bush Hager just went on when she picked this book and said she has been waiting for a long time to share it with us, so I can't wait to jump in. It sounds fascinating. Next, we're going to talk about Emma Roberts' book club that is also known as the Bellatrix book club. But first, please subscribe if you would like to see more content. Please hit that notification bell since I have no upload schedule. I try to do once a week, but sometimes I do twice a week and sometimes 3 times a week. And you can also follow me on Instagram. Please DM me to tell me that you are following me from this channel, and I'll make sure to follow you back on Instagram. But let's move on to all of these great picks. The June book was The Vanishing Half, which has been talked about on BookTube a lot lately. This is a really great book with a fascinating premise. So it's about a set of twins that are black, but they're very light-skinned. So when they are older and they are 16, they end up separating, and one of them lives as a black woman and one of them lives as a white woman. And it's just fascinating the way this relationships change, the way their children change, and how their children end up interacting. I think you've probably heard it from tons of other booktubers, but I will tell you as well, this is a must-read and definitely 5 stars. The July pick was The Dragons, the Giant, the Women, and this is a memoir written by Way Too More. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but that's how I was reading it. This book really does encapture most of her life. It starts off when she's 5 years old and she has to escape because of the first Liberian Civil War. And then it talks about how she's trying to build a life in the United States, and then how she eventually wants to go back home to Liberia. And this was a very hard book to read. It's, we're talking about Civil War, lots of violence, but I definitely do recommend it. I don't rate memoirs and nonfiction, I always say, because it depends on the reader. But if this is something you're interested in learning more about, I know it's something I didn't really know a lot about, then I definitely recommend you pick it up. And the Bellatrix Book Club also picked 2 books for August. We'll talk about the first one. It is Blue Ticket by Sophie McIntosh. And this is a dystopian novel. Not a YA dystopian novel, which is very common, but just a regular dystopian novel. Our main character is Calla, and she lives in a world that when you are a young girl and you get your first period, you go and get your ticket. And you either get a blue ticket or you get a white ticket. If you get a blue ticket, then you are able to have a career and to have a lot of independence. If you get a white ticket, you can't have a career, but you can have children and marriage. So basically in this book, if you're a woman, you can either have a career or you can have marriage and children. You can't have both. And Calla ends up getting a blue ticket, which is the career ticket. Unfortunately, Calla really wants to be a mom, and so she has to secretly kind of sabotage her body in order to get pregnant in the first place, and then she has to hide her pregnancy. She has to go on the run. And I mean, this book it was heart-wrenching at times. And it was really obvious that the book was talking about the fact that women, even in 2020, it seems like they have a decision. Do you want to have a career or do you want to have marriage and children? If a woman says, oh, I'm going to be a doctor, she a lot of times is going to be asked, well, do you want to have a family? But if a man says, hey, I'm going to be a doctor, nobody goes, well, do you want to have a family? So I really love this book, even as heart-wrenching as it was, and I agreed with so much of what it was saying without saying. I do think things are getting better. I know more and more dads are becoming stay-at-home dads, and dads are definitely taking a bigger role in the parenting of children, but I still think we have a ways to go, and this book, I think, really hit the nail on the head. And 5 stars. And then her second book that was picked was Luster, and this book was really interesting. In this book, the main character is a young black woman in her 20s named Edie, and she ends up forming a relationship with a man who's in an open marriage. And I'm talking really open, like the wife knows about her. Definitely strange. And then slowly the wife starts to befriend her and kind of brings her into the home. And even though she's a black woman, her boyfriend and his wife are white, but they have adopted a black child. And so a lot of it has to do with Edie's relationship with this child, because these parents, they're not really doing as well as they could be doing. For example, I know white people who have adopted black children and they've gone and said, can you teach me how to do their hair because it's different, in that respect. And in this book, this child's hair is always a mess because these parents haven't even, tried to find out, like, how would you do her hair? And so Edie really takes an interest in her. And this was a really quick read as well, and I gave this one 4 stars. And then her September book is The Lightness, and I've already started this, and this book is so different. Our main character in this is Olivia, and her father, who she was so close to a year earlier, left to go to a meditation center and then just disappeared. So Olivia decides she's going to trace his steps and see if she can figure out what happened. And she does this by enrolling in one of their programs for troubled teens over the summer. There she meets a small group of girls who are really into learning how to levitate. They're really into, spiritual and what you can accomplish with meditation. And their end goal, as far as what I've read so far, is they want to figure out how to levitate. And they've been told by the people who are running this little camp that levitation is possible if they are centered enough. This book has been compared to the movie The Craft, just that you have a small group of girls who are trying different ways to kind of manipulate nature and the supernatural. And I have to agree that I do see those similarities. But I'm about halfway through, so I don't know if they're going to be able to levitate or not, but I really hope they are. And next month, well, I won't tell you if they are, but I'll tell you if you should read this one. Now, if this is the first time you've watched one of my Celebrity Book Club reviews, the way I do Oprah, it's a little bit different because Oprah doesn't have a new book every month. She has a new book maybe once every 2 or 3 months. So I have 1 book to review and then I have 2 books to introduce. So the last time I did a video, I actually decided that I was going to go back because she actually started her book club over. It's called Oprah 2.0 and she started it in 2019. And I heard so many wonderful things about The Water Dancer that I decided that I was going to pick that to discuss. Our main character is young Hiram Walker, who is a black man who was born into slavery. He has no memory of his mother, but he has sort of a supernatural gift. And the writing in this is just really, really beautiful. And yes, I highly recommend that you go on this journey with him. This one is a definitely 5-star. Now, right after I did the last video, I saw that she had picked a new book, and it was Deacon King Kong by James McBride. And I have not started this yet, but I'm so looking forward to it. And from what I understand, this takes place in 1969, so this would be historical fiction, and it's about a cranky old deacon from the church. And one day this deacon decides that he goes to a very public place and he pulls out a gun and shoots the biggest drug dealer in their community. And it said that the reasons for him doing this and the consequences of him doing this is what this book is going to explore. So it sounds very interesting, very fascinating, and I'll definitely let you guys know next month if you should check it out. And recently, Oprah has picked another book for her book club. It's called Caste: The Origins of Our Discontents. And basically, it's supposed to be about the unspoken caste system in America. So it sounds very interesting, and I can't wait to discuss that with you guys next month. So thank you very much for watching. I will be posting my October TBR soon. I'm going to be playing Current Chapters game again. I'm also going to be doing an unboxing, which I have not done in forever. I'm going to be unboxing a Fake Crate and a Fairy Loot box and see which one is better. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.